Maseches Yevamos Daf Chav Zayin discusses the halacha of chalitza psula. Gemara has three sugyas in chalitza psula. Chalitza psula is if you do a weak chalitza, that's a chalitza which is required because you could not have done yibum. Now chalitza is meant to break the yibum connection. That means that there's a strong yibum connection. You could have done yibum, instead you do chalitza. That's a strong chalitza. That patters the chalutza and the tzara of the chalutza, the co-wife in that marriage. A chalitza psula, when you could not have done yibum, is that strong enough to pater the tzara or not? So the Gemara has three cases that Shmuel brings, and the Gemara will have some questions and answers as far as how the tzara is patered or not patered by that. Then the Gemara goes on to the discussion of chalitza psula, which is a get or a mimer, which is stronger, a get or a mimer, which is more likely to create a situation in which the connection that's afterwards is weak, and the chalitza that's afterwards is therefore weak. Third discussion will be if a woman is in a weak connection, she is aser tor yavam, and then she is restored to a state of heter. Does she go back to the state of heter? Does she stay with the state of iser, and therefore we chalitza that began? So the Gemara begins with three examples of a weak chalitza where you could not have done a yibum. The first is a case of achos zikukaso. That is Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven and Shimon are married to two sisters. Reuven and Shimon die. Both women fall to Yevim to Levi. They are each a sister of each other, and they are each of this, therefore a sister of a zikuka. Now, each of these is an achos zikukaso, so you have to do chalitza. Now, if each of these had a tzara, remember they are not part of the same marriage. They're not married to the same man. One was married to Reuven, one was married to Shimon. But if each had a tzara with them, says Shmuel, that tzara is not patered because it's a weak chalitza. The second case that Shmuel says is a case where he did a mimer to a chalutza, to a yevama, and then he did chalitza. A chalitza following a mimer is weak. The mimer is when he did kedushin to a yevama. And you're not supposed to do kedushin to a yevama, but if he did, it's the beginning of the yibum process, could be, but then it's weak, the chalitza comes afterwards is weak, that would not pater the tzara. And the third is if he gave a get to his yivama, he's not supposed to do that either, he's supposed to do yibum, but if he did give a get, the chalitza comes afterwards is weak, and he could not have done yibum after that, he can't do yibum after he gave a get, and therefore it doesn't pater the tzara. So all these three cases don't pater the tzara. So now the Gemara has a question on the case of achos zikukaso. Achos zikukaso, we're viewing the woman as the one who falls to yibum. It's two women falling to Yibum, that they are considered to be a weak chalitza connection, and therefore they don't pater the tzara, because they're achos zikukaso, and a zika is like a marriage, so achos zikukaso is like an achos ishto. The Gemara says if they're achos ishto, they're considered to be an erva, then they should also pater the tzara. Now Shmuel though says that if you do yibum to the tzaros in this cases, in the case of the two women who fell to yibum and they were sisters, if you do yibum to their tzaros, that's a good yibum. We do chalitza to their tzaros, it's a good chalitza, that would pater the two achos zikukaso. So why should that be? The halacha is that a tzara has the same halacha as the original erva. So if an erva is pater, her tzara is pater, then the tzaras achos zikukaso should also be a weak chalitza, should also not pater the achos zikukaso herself. That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara gives two answers with a discussion on each. So the Gemara first of all says the problem here is not achos zikukaso. Shmuel doesn't hold of zika. Zika is not a problem, but achos zikukaso is not an iser. So the Gemara says first of all Shmuel holds on Daf Yud Ches. Shmuel holds of achos zikukaso. Shmuel holds that zika is an iser. So Gemara says okay, here Shmuel is saying according to the other opinion that zika is not an iser. He's going according to ein zika. So again, but what's the problem in this case? We have two sisters who fall to Yibum, the wives of Reuven and Shimon who fall to Yibum to Levi. What's the problem? Why can't they do Yibum? It's we thought it was because of achos zikukaso. What else is it? So Gemara says not. The first, he does chalitza to the first woman, that's actually a good chalitza. Nothing wrong with that. The problem is the second one that he does chalitza to, that's an achos chalutzaso, that everybody holds of, and that doesn't pater her tzara. So the Gemara says, but what do you mean? Shmuel said that the tzaros are both not patered. And you're telling me that the tzara of the first one, the one who got chalitza first, is patered. The Gemara says no, he only meant the second one. The Gemara says, but he said tzaros, plural. He meant in all cases where this happens, all those tzaros, the tzaros of the second woman, are not patered, referring generally to tzaros, not the two tzaros in this case. So the Gemara's question then is, if it's true that as you say that in the second case, the tzara is not patered, So then when Shmuel says that if he does chalitza to the tsaros that it works, he's saying that that's better than doing chalitza to the achayos themselves. If he does chalitza to their tsaros, they work, he must be then saying that chalitza to both tsaros works. In both cases, both the tzara of the first one, the first chalitza, and the tzara of the second chalitza. Because he can't be saying only that the first one works, because that works even to do chalitza to the actual woman who fell herself, not the tzara, the actual achos zikukas achos. So it must mean that both tzaros, if it does even to both tzaros, it works. Well, why should that be? That means that the second case, when it does yibum to the tzara of the second woman, so what's that? That is the tzara of an achos chalutzaso. And we have a Mishnah that says clearly, tzaras achos chalutzaso is pater. Just like tzaras achos isha is pater, tzaras achos chalutzaso is pater. So how does this make sense? The Gemara says, no. Shmuel doesn't mean you do when you do chalitza to the tzaros it works. Shmuel means that if you did chalitza to the first sister, if you did chalitza to the first sister, then he can't do chalitza to the second tzara. That's aser. However, if the first chalitza he did was to a tzara, not to one of the sisters, he did chalitza to the tzaros of one of the sisters, then he's allowed to do chalitza to the second sister. That means as follows. Reuven and Shimon had a wife each, Rachel and Leah. Reuven and Shimon both die, and the two women fall to even to Levi. So if he does chalitza to Rachel first, so then he can't do chalitza to Leah's tzara, because that is the tzara of an achos chalutzaso. That doesn't work. However, if he first did chalitza to Rachel's tzara, that was the first woman to fall to him, and he first did chalitza to Rachel's tzara, then he could do chalitza to Leah herself, because Leah is now achos tzaras chalutzaso. The tzara of the chalutza, he did chalitza to Rachel's tzara, so the tzara of that chalutza is Rachel, and the sister of the tzara of the chalutza, that's mutter, that's not a problem. This is the Gemara's first answer to explain Shmuel, and we have slightly changed what Shmuel means. We've said that he only means that he did chalitza to one of them. There's only a problem with one of them, not with the other. So Gemara says, no, now we have a second answer, and the second answer, we don't have to change anything. It makes a lot of sense that you cannot do that. Really, the issue over here is yesh zika, and the problem with both of these women is that they're achos zikukaso. Can't do chalitza to either of them without it being a weak chalitza that doesn't pater the tzara. However, you could do even to the tzara. Achos zikukaso is a problem on the zikukasos, on the achayos themselves, on the sisters themselves. It's not a problem on their tzaras. It's not a strong enough erva type of situation to pater their tzara. We have a support of that from a brisa. A brisa says that in the case of the two sisters who fall to yibum from two different husbands, we can do, if he did chalitza to the sisters, the tzaros are not patered, very similar to our halacha. And the implication there is that if he did chalitza to the tzaros, they would be pater, and that's probably because of yesh zika. That zika is what makes the chalitza weak on the two sisters, but zika is not a problem on the tzaros of the sisters. Maybe that's not the pshat. Maybe the pshat is because here we are holding like this. Bryce is going like Beis Shammai, and Beis Shammai always allow tzaros of chalutzas to do yibum. So Gemara says, if so, not only could they do chalitza of the tzaros should even be able to do yibum. Why does it say that they did chalitza? So Gemara says, because maybe we're going like Rav Yochanan ben Nuri over here. Rav Yochanan ben Nuri holds tzaros should always do chalitza and not yibum, because we're afraid of getting confused situations in which they do yibum. And therefore that's what's happening here. So the Gemara asks, what do you mean? We said that they did not enact Rav Yochanan ben Nuri's takana. Gemara says later they did. In the beginning they rejected it, but later they did enact that all tzaros should get chalitza and not yibum. Okay, now the Gemara moves on to its second sugya, which is with, you have two women falling to yibum, one of them gets a get, and the other one gets a maimer. So again, you're not supposed to do either of these, but the question is, now he can't do yibum to either of them. He's got to do chalitza to both of them. He can't stay with either of them. Each one has a partial hybrid kind of situation. The question is, which chalitza will be a stronger chalitza? These women are tzaros with each other in this case. They're two tzaros. And he did yibum, he gave a get to one and maimer to the other. So which one would be the stronger chalitza that would pater the other one? on the one hand, maybe the chalitza of the one who got the get is stronger because she already is partially severed. She already started the severing process, the freeing process, by getting a get. It's not complete because she had a zikas yibum, she wasn't married, so the get's not the right thing, but they already started, so maybe the chalitza finishes off the job, so that's stronger. On the other hand, maybe chalitza is stronger if it goes into a more robust connection. Chalitza is stronger if it breaks a strong connection, like we've been saying up till now. So therefore, maybe it's stronger to do chalitza to the one who got maimer, which is the beginning of a yibum process, the beginning of strengthening the connection. So the Gemara says the answer is that they're both equal. And we see that from a case of Rav Gamliel, where Rav Gamliel says that whichever one you did first, a get or a maimer, you could do the whatever you do afterwards takes effect. And it does pater the tzara in that case there. If you do a get first and then a maimer, if you do a maimer first and then a get, they count. The second one counts. So you see that neither of them is stronger than the other, because if either of them was stronger, then the second one, then the weaker one should not work after the stronger one. The stronger one, the second one should not have any effect. It shouldn't do anything. It should be as if nothing happened. It shouldn't create an Isser Yibum. It shouldn't create any of those issues. Because it's happening after something which already includes everything that it did. But no, both create an Isser Yibum. Again, Rav Gamliel's case where we have two tzaros, and he does get to one and maimer to the other, both create an Isser Yibum. Whichever one's stronger goes first should make it that the second one doesn't create an Isser Yibum, yet it does, so we see from there that they are equal. Okay, now the Gemara discusses the sugya of if someone is mutter, if a woman is usher to do yibum, and then she becomes mutter, does she actually become mutter, or does her original Isser stick and cannot end? So the Gemara quotes two cases. In one, everybody agrees, in one there's a machlokes. So the discussion is between Rav and Rav Yochanan. So we have two women falling to Yibum to the same man. So let's say Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven and Shimon are married to two sisters, Rachel and Leah. So if Rachel falls to Yibum first, that's Reuven, her husband, is the first one to die, so she's fine, she's not usher. Then if Leah falls to Yibum, Leah is an achos zikukaso from the time she falls to Yibum. Rachel started off mutter. Leah started off usher. Leah always was an achos zikukaso. So the question is, what happens if one of the women goes ahead and she dies? What happens then? So everyone agrees if the second woman to fall to Yibum is the one to die, then the first woman is permitted to do a regular Yibum or a Chalitza. And the reason is because she started off mutter. She started off not an achos zikukaso. She was the first one who fell to Yibum. When her sister became a zikukaso, when her sister got a zika, then she was an achos zikukaso, she was asked to do Yibum. But then when she died, that zika ended, she goes back to being a regular Yevama, and she can do Yibum no problem. Now, that everybody agrees to. Machlokes is what happens in a case where the first sister to fall to Yibum is the one who died, and then the second sister to fall to Yibum, who started out as an achos zikukaso, does she become mutter now? Do you say since she started out as an achos zikukaso, she started out in a case where she can't do Yibum, therefore she's considered to be like an eshes ach without children, and therefore she has an isser eshes ach. So Gemara has machlokes Rav and Rav Yochanan. Rav says no, she does become mutter, and Rav Yochanan says no, she becomes usher. Rav Yochanan holds that she can never go back to being mutter once she was usher in the beginning, because once you don't have a mitzvah of Yibum, then you have an isser eshes ach. So when I ask, the Rav also agrees. Rav has also said that whenever you have an isser of a Yibum that you can't do, it never changes. Even if that isser goes away, she's still an eshes ach, so she still has the same isser. So the Gemara answers, Rav only said that in a case of achos ishta where it was a real erva, she was really usher. This is only an achos zikukaso, that's only drabanan. We don't go so strictly, and we don't say that. The Gemara says, though, now we have a serious problem in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had the case of four brothers, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Reuven and Shimon are married to sisters, and Reuven and Shimon die. Those two sisters fall to Yibum. And the Mishnah there says they both have to do Chalitza. Neither one is allowed to do Yibum. The Gemara says, but I have a problem over here. Because the first one fell to Yibum first, whichever was the one whose husband had died first. She fell to Yibum first, and she was mutter. She only became an achos zikukaso when her sister fell to Yibum. So that sister has to get Chalitza, that's for sure. But let that sister get Chalitza first, And then the original sister who started out in mutter goes back to being mutter. She's not an achos zikukaso anymore. Her sister's zika has ended. So what's the problem? Why doesn't she just do yibum now? So Gemara says, okay, maybe she could. Maybe the Mishnah just said she can't do chalitza. It meant that only the second sister has to do, she has to do chalitza. She can't do yibum. It meant the second sister to fall has to do chalitza and can't do yibum. So Gemara says, no, but it says chaltzos. It says that it says plural, they both get chalitza. Once again, it means chaltzos to albo. It means in all such cases, the first woman, the second woman to fall to yibum gets chalitza. Gemara says no, but it says elu. It says hare elu. These plural have to do chalitza. Gemara says okay, so maybe it's talking about a case where he happened to do chalitza to the first one first, then he has to do chalitza to the second one. That's when they both do. Gemara says no, it can't be, because it says that lechatchila they should do chalitza. That means even if nothing happened, we passing for them that they should do chalitza. Whereas a number of other suggestions as to how we could possibly resolve this Mishnah. In the end, though, Rav Yochanan says that this Mishnah is wrong. It doesn't make sense. It's not our problem. Tomorrow is going to offer some more suggestions and quite a few more on the next daf.